Hi everyone, Stephen Alexander here from politicallyimpaired.com. Today we're going to be looking at Rob Reiner's latest rant on MSNBC. He's got a lot of things to say about Trump, and he's also promoting his movie, his new movie LBJ, which you're going to see in a second. Now, those who don't know who Rob Reiner is, he's responsible for a lot of the great movies out there. Most notably, my personal favorite, The Princess Bride. I suggest you watch it if you haven't.
The words that have been flung out from his mouth are insane. If he was not a celebrity, if Donald Trump was not a celebrity, the words that come out of his mouth you'd see a guy in a park, a lunatic in a park on a soapbox, and you'd walk right by him. But the fact that he is a celebrity, all of a sudden, we're all interested.
You're shitting me. I'm not shitting on you.
Actor and director Rob Reiner knows a thing or two about the inner workings of fame, and he made the case back in May that celebrity culture explained, in part, the rise of Donald Trump. And joining me now is Rob Reiner himself, one of the many public figures voicing opposition against Trump and his cabinet picks. Rob, thank you so much for getting up early. I know you're on the West Coast, so really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Joy.
I really wanted to talk to you. I've been following you on Twitter, and just everything you say, you kind of are speaking my inner thoughts.
Of course, he's a celebrity, just like Donald Trump.
A new film out that is about my other obsession, which is the Lyndon Johnson era. The film is called LBJ. It's about LBJ's life as a young man growing up in West Texas and his sort of journey to become a big political figure into the White House. I wonder what you think about this idea that after LBJ and all the great accomplishments of the Great Society, because of Vietnam and other things, you have this huge backlash against the civil rights stuff, against the housing, ending housing discrimination by law. You have this huge backlash, right, that puts the conservatives in power for a generation. And the same thing seems to have happened to Barack Obama. Is that a sound theory in your mind?
It is, and I think that what we've seen is that the civil rights movement was kind of submerged for a long time. You know, you had the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, you had the Loving versus Virginia in 1967. Things seemed to be moving in a good direction. You had African Americans taking positions of prominence in the media and movies and television. Then you had the election of the first African-American president, and it seemed like we were on a glide path towards civility and inclusion and all of those things. And then you see the election of Donald Trump, the first, who's, supported by the KKK, and it's like, we've never left the 60s, or for that matter, the Civil War.
And here we go. Of course, Donald Trump is supported by the KKK. Of course, Donald Trump is supported by the KKK. He's the only one on the fucking GOP that was that was telling people he was going to deport illegal immigrants. Of course, he's supported by the KKK. Let's talk about Hillary Clinton for a second. Her mentor. Did you forget about her mentor? Let me show you a little something.
My friend and mentor, Robert C. Byrd. Senator Byrd was a man of surpassing eloquence and nobility.
There are a lot of people who wrote these eulogies for Senator Byrd in the newspapers, and I read a bunch of them, and they mentioned that he once had a fleeting association with the Klux Klan, and what does that mean? It means he was a country boy from the hills and hollows of West Virginia. He was trying to get elected. And maybe he did something he shouldn't have done, and he spent the rest of his life making it up. And that's what a good person does. And that's what a good person does. I am grateful to Bob Byrd for many things. But one thing that no one has given enough attention to, in my opinion today, is that while he always wanted to be the best senator, and he always wanted to be the longest serving senator, he wanted every other senator to be the best senator that he or she could be. And he helped Hillary a lot when she came to represent the people of New York. I am forever grateful for that.
I think we try to have goodwill. My old mom told me, Robert, you can't go to heaven if you hate anybody. We practice that. There are white niggers.
And that's what a good person does.
And his passion for a government that improves the lives of the people it serves.
Niggers.
And that's what a good person does.
As Secretary of State, I continued to rely on his advice and counsel.
Niggers.
You know, you had the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act. You had the Loving versus Virginia in 1967.
Would you change your vote on civil rights if you had to give it today?
Yes, I would. On the civil rights laws of 1964, I would.
After more than 5 decades of service, he left an indelible imprint on the Senate, on West Virginia, and on our nation.
Niggers.
And his passion for a government that improves the lives of the people it serves. As Secretary of State, I continued to rely on his advice and counsel.
So now knowing that Hillary Clinton's mentor was actually a KKK member, and that's her mentor, like she looked up to him. She wrote theses and shit like that, like based on this guy. Like she really looked up to him, and when she passed, she did this big sob story, as you've seen now. So out of that, what choice did we have between Hillary Clinton and, and Donald Trump? One supported by the KKK, not supported back. Donald Trump has renounced the KKK on several occasions.
I will not stop until we fight a man that chooses not to disavow the KKK.
Trump refuses to denounce the KKK. He refuses to denounce the KKK.
I've rejected David Duke. I've rejected the KKK, the Klux Klan. From the time I'm 5 years old, I rejected them.
What do you see as the biggest problem with the Reform Party right now?
Well, you've got David Duke just joined, a bigot, a racist, a problem. I mean, this is not exactly the people you want in your party.
I'm David Duke, and this is a quick, unscripted response to the CNN interview today with Donald Trump. I can begin by the inaccurate reporting of the media that I have endorsed Donald Trump. Specifically, I have said clearly, and every time I've talked about his candidacy, that I am not endorsing Donald Trump.
David Duke is a bad person who I disavowed on numerous occasions over the years.
I said to myself, how many times do I have to reject or disavow?
I happen to know, and everyone in America happens to know, that Donald Trump is not a racist. That's a tag that his opponents and the media tries to label him with, but he's not a racist. I mean, he did disavow David Duke. Hugh said he'll have to disavow him until eternity, which he probably will.
As opposed to Hillary Clinton, who actually embraces a Klan member, someone that was her mentor. She was raised, politically anyway, on KKK ideals. And go through her history. It's not a mystery. Just do a little bit of research, and that's the problem. Hillary supporters don't want to do the research when it comes to Hillary Clinton, which is basically, their problem. It's this big, Donald Trump's a racist. He's a racist. He's a racist. He's a racist. He wants to deport illegal immigrants. Illegal immigrants. What's the problem with that? I don't understand it. Okay, it's not like he's saying, hey, no immigrants. He's keeping the ones that are legally there, and he just wants to deport the ones that are not legally there. It makes perfect sense to me. If you're not paying taxes and you're not, and you're not like contributing to the country, like maybe you shouldn't be here. It makes sense. And he's also talking about the criminals. Like, we don't see that a lot, like in the northern states, which is why, like, Donald Trump isn't really supported in the northern states. They don't have this, like, this big overflow of, Mexican criminals.
And so all of these racist feelings have been kind of submerged, and then Donald Trump, with a megaphone, and starting with the birther issue, gave voice to all of these racist feelings, and we've seen it bubble to the surface. It's interesting you mentioned LBJ, because we had a screening recently in Washington, D.C. for members of Congress, senators, and House of Representatives.
Make sure you take a moment to promote your movie there, Rob. It's not like you're having a serious political discussion or anything.
And also Linda Johnson, Lyndon's, Linda Bird, Lyndon's daughter was there, and the expression of acceptance and the eruption after the screening was over, people standing on and cheering.
This sounds like a big old fucking big old rub out for Rob Reiner right here, doesn't it? Look at all the people cheering and standing up because of my movie. Again, you're in a serious political conversation. Maybe not promote your movie. Like I said before in previous episodes, 9 times out of 10, if you're selling something, you're probably full of shit, and like your words are usually just trying to promote. It's not a big surprise that, okay, so he's doing this movie about LBJ, someone he considers to be a hero, and a lot of people do because of the civil rights movement and whatnot. And yeah, it's a really good topic to be opposing Trump and calling him a madman when you're, doing a movie about the civil rights movement. Do you see the problem here? Sounds like a salesman knocking at the door trying to sell you a vacuum or some shit, doesn't it?
Anyone who says differently is selling something.
It took on a different meaning than when we first started screening the picture before the election. It was like a completely different experience. People were saying, we're back to where we started from. These are the same issues. It seems like we're fighting the last battle of the Civil War.
Everybody keeps mentioning Civil War. We can't have another Civil War, people. There's no point in having a Civil War. There's no point, all right? Like, yes, we have Trump in the White House. But I don't see anybody hating anybody, based on their race, I've met a lot of Republicans. I've talked to a lot of Republicans, even Trump's biggest supporters. They're not racist people. They're simply not. That's a delusion. I've never seen it. Yeah, obviously there's the odd idiot, but there's idiots on both sides here.
Yeah, and like the sort of a morph of Nixon meets George Wallace with a celebrity thrown in sort of comes in after. It is amazing how cyclical history can be. You talked, and we played a soundbite in the beginning from when you were on Morning Joe back in May, about this idea that Trump's celebrity allowed him to bypass a lot of the rules that normally were in place for a political figure. I have to read a couple of the other things that you've said, and this is our cut 3, sorry for my producers. You said a president-elect pays $25 million for defrauding people of their life savings. MSM yawns, mainstream media. But use an email server illegally? Now that's a story.
Use an email server legally. Now that's a story. It was not legally. It was illegally.
Clinton's private email server appears to have been set up in late 2008 or early 2009, just before she was confirmed as Secretary of State. And she says she then used it for both her private and public emails throughout her 4 years in office. It was not, however, until March of 2013 that we saw the first reports that would eventually reveal she was using this private email for all of her official business.
What the hell are you talking about, Rob Reiner?
Donald Trump embraces white supremacy, uses the presidency to enrich himself, shuts out the media. Welcome to a nationalist totalitarian oligarchy. We're about to inaugurate a pathological, lying, racist, anti-Semite, misogynist in league with Russia, and MSM is still giving him a free pass. You've been a big critic of what the media has done.
Wow. Okay, first of all, mainstream media, not giving him a free pass, obviously. We're watching this on mainstream media, not to mention all the mainstream media that's fucking just diving into him with the whole racist stuff like that. Anti-Semite. I've yet to see anything to do with him and being racist against Jews. I haven't seen it. Misogynist? Maybe. He does have a thing against women, but and that's quite obvious. That's why Hillary Clinton being his competitor. It looks really bad, and you can see the rise of women being against Trump, and other misogynists jumping on the Trump bandwagon and being against Clinton. But for me, it had nothing to do with that. It's a matter of Clinton being fucking insane.
Do you think that the media was sort of stymied by the volume of things that Donald Trump was throwing out, or was it his celebrity?
I think it's both. But if you look in during the primary battle, he got free media. I mean, he could call into Morning Joe anytime he wanted. They just chatted away. It was as if, it wasn't a serious candidate. He was just somebody who was a celebrity.
And he's also talking about Trump having this, this status as a celebrity and able to bypass certain political procedures because of it.
And the only way we can prove that to you is by having lots of famous people.
Lots of famous people.
Lots and lots of famous people.
Just a shit ton of famous people.
Repeating how important.
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 Important. Important.
How important it is.
Register.
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 Vote.
There's so many famous people. A racist, abusive coward who could permanently damage the fabric of our society.
Do the math. Do we really want to give nuclear weapons to a man whose signature move is firing?
Firing things?
But we can end this nightmare before it begins.
We can save the day.
For our children.
For our children.
For our children.
For our communities.
For our communities.
For our communities.
For America.
For America. For America.
For the country.
She's absolutely right. But is this the first time it's happened? Like, no one stood up and said anything when Arnold Schwarzenegger was running for the governor of California. But if you want to look like the most interesting case to match with it is Ronald Reagan. Now, Ronald Reagan's a big hero on the Republican side of things. So who was Ronald Reagan? Like, he was an actor. If you forget, he was in a lot of movies.
I wish I'd never heard of you. Ever since you've been here, things have changed. I wish you'd never come back.
Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan? The actor? Then who's vice president? Jerry Lewis?
So he uses celebrity fame at the same time, right, to get him into office, and then later on to the presidency. And he served like 2 terms and did a lot of really good things for the country. So we're not really giving Trump the benefit of the doubt. And you got to remember, at the same time, Ronald Reagan back in the day, it was a different time, the happy housewife sort of thing. Like, there was no need to come out and say anything against women and all that stuff. Not that I have anything against women, but there was no need. So could Ronald Reagan have been that way? It's a possibility, but you would never know because he wouldn't have brought it up in the first place. So I think if we can give Ronald Reagan the chance to be great, and he actually did do great, what's wrong with just like kicking back and seeing what Trump can do? Like Clinton, did the whole cigar in the vagina thing, right? And amongst many, many other things that you probably don't even know about, but for the love of God, look it up. And that got him impeached. So hey, relax, okay? If Trump fucks up in a way that really pisses people off during his presidency, you can always impeach him. It's happened in the past, right? To Clinton.
It was good for ratings. I'll never forget what Les Moonves said. It was a friend of mine who said, he's bad. Donald Trump is bad for the country, but good for CBS. I mean, that to me is very, very, very cynical. I mean, we used to have an independent free press, and I'm making a film now called Shock and Awe, which is all about the importance of a free and independent press if we're going to have a healthy democracy.
And he is right about that. I will agree with Rob Reiner on this one. Because, like, when you look at the GOP during the primary, or the battle for the primary, of all the people on the stage, Trump made the least amount of sense, in my personal opinion. At least at first. He started to make a little bit more sense near the end. But Trump repeated the same things over and over again, and he was a bully. He bulldozed his way through the GOP, and we bypassed like Rand Paul, and Rand Paul I have a lot of respect for, and he had like personal experience putting the nuts to Hillary Clinton.
Had I been president at the time, and I found that you did not read the cables from Benghazi, you did not read the cables from Ambassador Stevens, I would have relieved you of your post. I think it's inexcusable.
So, like, why didn't he bypass and the same way Trump did? Because he didn't have the celebrity status. So he is right about that.
And it seems like that's just gone by the boards. And ever since media became a profit center, news became a profit center, it's like all these journalistic precepts are out the window. I mean, it's very, very scary. And we're about to give them a free pass again.
Free pass my ass. They've been digging up dirt on Donald Trump since he started this whole campaign. He has not had a free pass. Hillary Clinton has had a free pass. Come on. Like the emails? Like, come on. Benghazi? Come on. Really? And mainstream media doesn't want to bring that shit up. So, Rob Reiner, man, as much as I respect you, as much as I love your work, I think you're a little bit full of shit. Maybe you might be a little bit biased because you're trying to promote the civil rights movement movie that you just made. I think it's safe to say that's what the case is here.
Yeah.
I mean, he is going to break. You had a guest on earlier, Painter, who said, you know, basically he's going to break the emoluments clause. He's going to run afoul of the United States Constitution. What's going to happen? Are we just going to let that go? I mean, it's astounding, the free pass that this guy's been given.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are worried that there won't be much pushback because he is simply refusing to abide by these norms. And after a while, people just sort of throw up their hands. You also talked about something that I think a lot of people who do you sort of have a love for shows like Seinfeld have brought up, because the Steve Bannon thing, it sticks in the craw of so many people who are Jewish, people who are people of color, because he's just there without comment, knowing that he came from this white nationalist website and ran it. You talked about the fact that it disgusts you, makes you sick that Trump's chief strategist is making money off of Seinfeld. He bought into it back in the day, and that he uses Seinfeld royalties to fund a number of his pet projects, including a slew of truly awful right-wing documentaries, publication of Clinton Cash.
Now, that might be right. But, okay, so he got involved with Seinfeld a long time ago, knowing that it was going to be a huge success. And the guy's making a shitload of money off of it. That sounds like being smart to me.
Isn't it ironic to you, in a way, that Seinfeld winds up helping to fund this book full of attacks on Hillary Clinton that then becomes the FBI investigation, that then becomes the Comey letter? Your thoughts?
My thoughts are we remain in Alice in Wonderland. I mean, it's just crazy.
Is Hollywood going to eventually participate in the normalization of this? I mean, there will be the Kennedy Center honors and all the things that normally happen, the White House Correspondents' Dinners, where people are asked to fet the president and asked to sort of treat him as a fellow celebrity. Does Hollywood wind up giving in to that in the end?
Boy, I hope not. I mean, I'm hoping that we never make it to the first Kennedy Center honors.
I certainly hope so, because people need to respect the process of the election, all right? Democracy. Now, if people are just going to cast him aside and treat him like he's not the president, what's the point of the democracy in the first place? Like, when this whole thing began, they asked Hillary Clinton a very specific question: would you accept the results of the election, as a whole? And she said yes. So why is she fighting this whole fucking recount and all that stuff? And on top of that, she hasn't said a word trying to stop people from from rioting through the streets. She hasn't stopped anybody. Donald Trump has.
Trump has got to get on the TV and tell his supporters that violence in the political process in America is not acceptable.
Don't be afraid. We are going to bring our country back, but certainly don't be afraid. We just had an election, and sort of like you have to be given a little time.
Mr. Trump was also asked about acts of violence popping up in his name or against his supporters.
I am so saddened to hear that, and I say stop it. If it helps, I will say this, and I'll say it right to the camera: stop it.
Crazed, violent Bernie Sanders supporters, Black Lives Matter extremists, and other leftist agitators, unhinged mobs assaulted people, attacked police, tore up signs, blocked ambulances, fired guns in the air.
Some of your supporters in Chicago were acting violently as well, and I have to say, the guy who rushed the stage yesterday at Donald Trump voted for you. Now, I know you're not encouraging the violence, but
Jake,
you need to tell your supporters.
Millions of people voted for me. If I have to take responsibility for everybody who voted for me, it will be a very difficult life.
Somehow, once he breaks that emoluments clause, which he will, which is self-dealing and self-interest, it's going to be conflict of interest, that hopefully the Republicans in the House will have the guts to say these are impeachable offenses, and he doesn't make it to that first Kennedy Center honors.
Until it actually happens, you have nothing to say. Just like all the stuff that you're saying that's going to happen hasn't happened yet. Give him a chance. You can always impeach him. Until then, you don't have a fucking leg to stand on. Chill.
We shall see. Rob, you're great. We're going to keep you over for the next part of the show, so thank you very much. So stand by. We're going to come back to you.
Now, Rob Reiner, as much as I respect him, he's full of shit. He's selling something, and that's why he's making a big stink now. If he wasn't making his movie about LBJ and the civil rights movement, he wouldn't have a fucking word to say about it. So as far as that's concerned, Rob Reiner, keep making movies. Cool. I'll keep watching them. but I don't want to hear your fucking political ideals, all right? Because, like, and Trump is not even in the White House yet. He hasn't even been sworn in. He hasn't. And as far as being in league with Russia, like, think about that for a second. When this whole thing started, everybody was on him because, oh, he supports Putin. Oh, he's a friend of Putin and blah, blah, blah. He's trying not to go to war. And sure as shit, it was what, like 48 hours after he was elected, he gets a call from Vladimir Putin in Russia, and they vowed to work together to put a stop to ISIS. He's not even sworn in, and he's already, like, basically, like, bringing about world peace, possibly. He's on the right track already. So you know what? Rob Reiner, chill. So far, he's doing good, and he hasn't even been sworn in yet. So take a chill pill, just relax, and give the guy a chance, all right? Yes, he's a celebrity. So was Reagan, and he did a lot of great things. So we can't just, like, jump the gun on this thing and just assume that he's going to be a horrible president. Chill. Anyway, that's my thoughts for today. I have a book giveaway, the Book of Neophyte, bestseller. It's a revamp, and for politically impaired subscribers, it's a free gift. Well, the ebook anyway. So if you'd like your free copy, all right, check out this this link in the description here. All right, that's my email address. Just shoot me an email, and I'll send you a copy. And make sure you subscribe, though. Okay. But anyway, so that's all I have to say, and thanks for watching. Take care.